ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रुत्वा प्रणमामि भूमि। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। बहुत दिन के बाद we have again resuming this class. मुझे भी अच्छा नहीं लगता ऐसे घर पे इससे करना, and in between summer की वजह से we didn't have class at all. So now long time again we have back and this is such an important text is Vivekachudamani. तो इतने दिन के बाद वो कहाँ छोड़े मेरा भी पता नहीं है. So let us start with some introduction because someone has written a very copy मिला कोई सज्जन मेरे दिया था. This is with the notes and the detailed, very elaborate notes by Sri Chandrasekhar Bharati. He was a Sringeri Math का अध्यक्ष थे. He was such a great soul. He was considered a ब्रह्मज्ञानी. इस उन्होंने ऐसे जगह पे ऐसे स्थिति में पहुंच गया था. Then at one point of time, finally, when he found that it's no longer necessary to keep this body, सबको सामने सीधा उन्होंने तुंगभद्रा में प्रवेश किया था. पहले बोला था तो बहुत लोग आए हुए थे. Simply entered into तुंगभद्रा. उन्हें कितना साहस चाहिए. Simply he सीधा जल समाधि. So that was his nature. And I don't think he was इतना बड़ा तो नहीं था. He was not too old. Maybe 70 के आसपास होगा क्या ऐसे कुछ हो. So he was a very great soul. See, normally, the Vedant, जो knowledge के लिए to read, generally 3 books are usually recommended called the Prasthanasthaya. Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra and the Upanishads. ये आप 3 से आपका संपूर्ण ज्ञान प्राप्त करना है. ये 3 से संभव है. So these are the 3 books which are essential. And बाद में आएंगे कौन पढ़ने के लिए लायक है, नालायक है. So all those discussions will come later. But essentially, these 3 texts one should read thoroughly. Bhashya, then only it's possible. That is why even whoever wants to establish his own philosophy, अपना मत स्थापना करने के लिए भी वो भी तीनों के पर भाष्य लिखना चाहिए. शंकर भगवत्पाद भी लिखे, रामानुजाचार्य भी लिखे, मध्वाचार्य also wrote. So all the 3 have written. But these books are quite tough. आप तो कोई ऐसे कोई साधारण सीधा पढ़ना तो संभव नहीं है. मेरा तो विवेकचूड़ामणि तो बहुत टफ लग रहा है. And actually this requires great knowledge, proficiency in Sanskrit, Vyakaran, Nyaya, Mimamsa और वेद की अध्ययन भी करने वाले. Only such people can read it and understand. So this is why Shankara Bhagavad ne socha, something can be done for those beginners. If you read this book, you will never get the impression it is for the beginners. लेकिन originally, according to him, you see, उन्होंने 7 साल उम्र में ऐसे he had taken sannyas and he was, he had conquered the world and such a short life he lived. I think within 30 he was gone. So such a person, obviously his standards are all very high. So he said that to such persons who are not really qualified to read the Prasthanasthaya, to him he thought he would write other smaller introductory books called Prakarana Granthas. They are for the beginner. so to say, like primer, जो हम लोग कहते हैं, ऐसा कुछ. So इसमें भी उन्होंने लिखा एक 7 श्लोकी करके 100 श्लोकास उसमें, एंड देन सर्व वेदांत सार संग्रह, तो 1000 श्लोक से उसके अंदर 1000 वर्सेस, and then Upadesh Sahasri and Vivekachudamani. So the 4 main Prakana Granthas he wrote, so that the ordinary people like us also read and learn about Vedanta. For these 4 he had done it. So the Vivekachudamani has something like 581 verses. It completely gives you the quintessence of Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta के सार संपूर्ण रूप से आपका समझ आ जाएगा if you read it carefully. So that is why it's called the Vivekachudamani, the crest well of discrimination. This is naturally in those days one of the very बहुत ही एक प्रचलित मेथड was गुरु शिष्य संवाद के माध्यम में, the question answers and discussions between Guru and Shishya, that was considered the most appropriate form of imparting of knowledge, etc. So it's a dialogue between a Guru and a Shishya, where the Guru expounds the Advaitic truths, culminating in ecstatic realization of the Shishya and his mukti. This was the idea in the study of Shastras in ancient India. कोई सिर्फ किताब पढ़ने के लिए कोई नहीं आते थे. It was not that. Reading means it's a realization ultimately. That's why there also used to be these ideas like Anubandha Chatushtaya. What is the Vishaya? What is the Prayojana? What is the Sambandha? And who is the Adhikari? These 4 things they always used to say. What is the subject? पहले तो क्या पढ़ने जा रहे हैं पता होना चाहिए ना. So subject is the first they will think about. And then Prayojana. ये क्या मेरा क्या कोई इससे पैदा होने वाला कि नहीं? Is it related to me? Is it meaningful? And then the connection between the Vishaya and the text, whether it really on those lines है, इसके अंदर बहुत इधर-उधर चलता रहता है. And finally, Adhikari, who is the qualified aspirant who can read this book and really benefit. So these 4 things they always used to. So the nature of its contents and the way it is expounded. So this Vivekachudamani is extremely popular among spiritual seekers. Many like it very much. So he was such a great soul. He also, because Chandrasekhar Bharati, he thought that he wanted to write commentary on that, and that is why this elaborate book, I think about something like 500 pages of book. So this Vivekachudamani essentially it's a philosophical treatise expounding the cardinal truths of Advaita. Advaita Vedanta में आपका जो जानना चाहिए सब अच्छी तरह से यहाँ चर्चा करके दिया गया. इसमें यही बोला मोक्ष प्राप्ति एकमात्र ज्ञान के द्वारा ही संभव है. Knowledge is the only way for moksha or ultimate realization. And then this is, to begin with, what is the beginning of this quest after knowledge? एक ज्ञान हम लोग प्राप्त करना चाहते हैं. कहाँ से प्रारंभ होता है? विवेक. पहला चीज इसीलिए नित्य अनित्य वस्तु विवेक. The discrimination between what is real and what is unreal. इसी से इसलिए ये किताब कभी विवेक के ऊपर इतनी जोर दिया गया यहाँ. This is called Vivekachudamani. तो विचार और बहुत तरीका होता है, एकदम आपका ऊंचाई तक इसमें ले जाएगा. That is why this is called Vivekachudamani. So the इसमें क्या है? So like uh, all the other texts also, this also talks about the nature of samsara, the cycle of birth and death, is the effect of the individuals. व्यक्तिगत रूप में जो पाप कर्म और पुण्य कर्म किया, जिसकी वजह से जो हम लोग पुनः पुनः आना जाना पड़ता है. The repeated idea of birth and death is because of the meritorious acts and wicked acts done over a period of time. So जब तक वो पूरी तरह कर्म का जो कर्म फल हम नहीं भुगते हैं, फिर जन्म लेना पड़ता है. Because again, unless you exhaust the karma phalas acquired to the actions of the previous births, you will have to keep on taking birth. So you have to exhaust. That's why those who are into spiritual life, they're extremely careful about the way they behave, the actions they do, because every action आप जो भी करते हैं ना, वो आपका चित्त में एक बीज रूप में कुछ छोड़ देता है. It leaves a seed in your chitta. Anything, whatever you do, good or bad, wicked, हम कई बार सोचते हैं, we always say, oh कुछ नहीं, मैं किया भूल गया, हो नहीं सकता है. You may forget, but there is a super computer sitting inside you, in your mind. So there are 4 aspects of it: chitta, buddhi, man, chitta, buddhi, hankar. Chitta mein it leaves as a bija. So this is what gives rise to sanskaras. Again, when something very similar you see or experience or hear or whatever it is, anything through the senses, this becomes like a kind of, it gets life, so to say. And then there is a reaction in the mind, whether to indulge in the same action or so. मन की स्तर पे बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं आएगा, वो बहुत उच्च अवस्था है. लेकिन आप थोड़ा संयम जीवन है, आपका ऐसे कोई साधन में मन है, आप आध्यात्मिक जीवन के प्रति लगन है, then a good number of aspirants can kind of stop it at the mental level itself. But ऐसी फिर भी आपका हमेशा आता रहे तो फायदा नहीं. So by doing that intense sadhana, what happens, the seeds slowly become kind of, जैसे आपका कोई बीज ऐसे पड़ा रहेगा, it becomes like a dead seed. It becomes like burnt seed. इसके कहते हैं दग्ध बीज अवस्था. And it's there, but it's not really powerful, not capable of sprouting again. आपकी उसी से उभर के नहीं आता है तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं. So all that sadhana etc. is because of it. So essentially, the action performed in various births, whether it's good karmas, good actions or bad actions, accordingly you have to enjoy them, and this is the reason for the repeated births and deaths, so to say. And in the action itself, what is the basis of the action? Desire. जायते विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषु उपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो विजायते. So this is the origin is desire. So Buddha also said, Krishna, there is dukkha in this world, suffering. The reason is tanha or Krishna, the desire. So desire is that which leads to action. Action is prompted by desire. And actually desire also arises in us because there is a sense of apurnata, an incompleteness in the mind. यही चाहिए, यही नहीं है, इससे भरना है, इससे पूर्ण करना है. That kind of thing, that leads to desire. Desire leads to action. Action leads to papa or punya. That leads to repeated birth. So it's a cycle. So it's called is chakra, sansar chakra or sansar sagara. इतनी गहराई. So it keeps on happening and happening. So the incompleteness, because we identify with the things of the world, with the things of the body, शरीर संबंधित, जगत संबंधित की चीजों प्रति हम लोग जो आकर्षण, उसी से we want to acquire, we want to enjoy it, then we feel that will lead to the happiness of the mind. But then it never happens like that. It only leads to more desires, more searching, more effort, and leading to more suffering and sorrow, etc. So essentially, what is this? This is the confusion of the Atman with the Anatman. Because no, the real our Shastras or our sages, जो पूर्व पुरुष जो साधकों का महापुरुषों का वाणी से ये पता होता है, by nature we are ever pure, ever blissful, हमेशा है जो सच्चित आनंद स्वरूप के, वो बाहर से from the world, why should we try to fill up and get an ananda? That is because we think that these are the things. See, these are all, it's not only scriptural statements. Even from our practical life, we see whatever we think is giving happiness, we find that it evaporates in no time, and most often than not, it ends in misery, sorrow, suffering. This is the experience of everybody. Nobody can say that any happiness in this world is leading to something permanent delight or joy, anything. No. Constantly, there's always suffering only. It does not lead to anything else. But still, again and again, there's an effort to go through that. And that is why there is a complete unceasing indulgence in this coming back and going and all that. Again, this samsara never seems to end. So the breaking of this bondage or the ending of this confusion between Atman and Atman, that can be done only by discrimination. Vivek ke madhyam mein sambhav hai. And that is why, because we have to know that the Atman alone is Nitya, all else are Anatman or Anitya. So the emphasis is on Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. What is Nitya? In fact, you see, not only for that, even in our daily life, this idea to some extent, it may not directly give us mukti. A little awareness of this idea between Nitya and Nitya will more than 50% of the problems would go away. How often we fret and fume over things we could not get, we could not achieve, we could not get satisfied with, and so on. All that Rana, if you sit back and think for 5 minutes, in fact, I often say, if you say at the end of the day, we really take stock, kya maine kiya aaj, 99.99 will go into the Anitya category only. Nitya would be 0.001% maybe. So may not be of the highest kind of discrimination, but always this is a wonderful tool whereby, even our daily life would also become much more meaningful and more peaceful if we practice this to some extent, because see, one of that is also, a sense of restraint, a sense of balance. People who immediately jump, immediately go, they tend to commit more mistakes, they get into more problems, more difficulties. Those people are little more restrained, little calm, take a second before going into anything. Those people seem to have, because, slowly this idea of Nityanitya is working in them, so to say. So, of course, in our Hindu scheme of things, according to the scriptures, they talk about two kinds of knowledge, Paravidya and Aparavidya. Because when there was a question in this Saunaka, Kasmin Bhagavo Vijnate Sarvamidam Vijnatam Bhavati. What is that by knowing which everything else is known? I don't want to keep on knowing thousands of things, because I find that whatever I know, immediately something else is unknown. Something I come to know that I find there are 10 other things which are emerging which I don't know. So can there be anything? Just by knowing that alone, I know everything else. I don't lack any other knowledge. So, must have been a very great seeker, otherwise he would not have, I don't think he would have asked it in a worldly sense. He must have asked only in a very supreme sense, because normally it's a common knowledge. We cannot acquire the knowledge of the world by just knowing one or two. However big supercomputer you may find out, it will not tell you something else. So, obviously, then in answer is said, ve vidye veditavye para cha apara cha iti. So there are two kinds of knowledge, para and apara. Only these two need to be known. Then of course about para vidya sa vimukte, that which gives you complete freedom, that is para vidya. What's all apara vidya? So apara vidya includes all that science, these grammar, everything that is related to the existential world or the experiential world, which is necessary for our daily life, for our functioning, etc., etc. You may have Brahmagyana, but if you want to learn how to drive a car or how to run an aeroplane, you have to learn that separately. So your Pravaradhya or Brahmagyan will not give you that, but because your everything ability would have been so sharp, you can learn it maybe 100 times faster than someone, an ordinary person, because you have so much of power of concentration, such sharpened faculties that might be, but you have to learn separately. So the for the existential purposes, you need to know all these vidyas, which are all called apara vidya. But of course, the our our Hindu outlook has always been entirely towards the Paravidya. As a, actually, that because we have completely moved away from our tradition and culture, we see a totally different kind of scenario even in a country like India. Previously, not that everybody was an extraordinary spiritual aspirant setting for Brahmagyana from day one itself, no. But the general lifestyle, the pattern of living itself was definitely a certain sense of otherworldliness was always there. We have also seen our own great grandfathers and many others. They were so simple in their life. The existential matters never used to worry them so much. But today all our concentration is only on how much big car I can have, or how much bigger dinner I can have, or that kind of constantly we are going towards the existential things, and that's why we are moving away more and more from Paravidya. Because the more and more you clutter the mind with ever so many unwanted information, details, etc., the mind loses its propensity or capacity to focus on something very important. आपकी जिसके ऊपर एकाग्र होना चाहिए, उसका होना संभव नहीं होगा, क्योंकि आप तो मन में आप हजार तरीका कूड़ा फेंका. So the more and more you keep away from that, generally the mind also gets more prepared for such a kind of vidya or anything. So but the concentration has always been on matters relating to Paravidya, and very little knowledge and very little emphasis was given on Aparavidya. But of course everybody knew for existential life it's all necessary, and as an obligation everyone has to go through certain things, certain concerns, caring for family, taking care of elders, even animals, etc. So obviously, Aparavidya also had a place in the scheme in our life. But there's always the sphere of knowledge which is called Paravidya, which gathered all attention and which was very, very important. So the Aparavidya gives the knowledge of the perishables, Paravidya gives the knowledge of the imperishable, or Savidya Mukti. So actually mind is as well is the kind of at the dividing point between these two domains of knowledge. It's exactly at the kind of dividing line. So the person faces the external world, is exposed to so many other things, and then in the internal world there is something totally different, and the mind seems to be the dividing line or the midpoint. So this is captured very nicely in Kathopanishad. It says, Paranchikani vatina swayambhuhu parang pashyati nantaratma kassiddhiraha pratyagatmanavakshat avrita chakshuhu amritattvamicha. The Paranchikani, they are all outward going, all our senses. Vatina swayambhuhu, the Lord in its wisdom, or Brahma, Chaturmukhi Brahma, whoever it is, the creator, has made all the indriyas constantly going outward. अब देखें इसका सब कुछ बाहर ही बाहर अंदर कभी भी हम लोग इसीलिए आंख बंद करके ध्यान करने में इतना दिक्कत लगता है, because now we are trying to turn the gaze inwards in meditation, ना अंदर की तरह देखना प्रयास करते हैं, वो कभी भी अभ्यास नहीं किया। और in the nature of creation वैसे ही सृष्टि किया गया, so that they all go outward, all that your eyes, nose, ears, everything is like that. So but you see, Parang Pashyati Nantaratma, so he does not see inwards. But is there any exception? Yes. Kaschid Dhiraha, some extraordinary beings, what do? Pratyagaatmanam Ekshat Avrita Chakshu Amritattavichan. By Avrita Chakshu, by turning their gaze inward, they see or realize the Pratyagatman, or the Atman that is inside. Why? They want Amritatva or immortality. They are not satisfied with what's happening in the outside world, so they want to see inwardly, to find out that Atman, and thereby become immortal or cross over this samsara sagar. So that's why in Gita also it says, from the Vidya, the greatest Vidya is Adhyatma Vidya. You know, it delineates कहाँ वो श्रेष्ठ है. So विद्या के अंदर अध्यात्म विद्या. So of course, to pursue any vidya, whether it's secular or sacred, is always this. It's through the path of jigasha or inquiry. So the relationship between a guru and a shishya, the proper shishya with who is an adhikari and who has the qualities of vinaya, samitpani, sotryam, brahmanishtam, tad vijnanartham. For knowing that, with samitpani, with that means gathering the okay, yagyake to kash lagta tha. So he will pick up all that samitpani and with hand carrying it with great humility, he will go to the guru who is Shrotriya and Brahmanishta, Kamahat, etc. So exceptionally well versed in scriptures, who lives the lives of scriptures, who is a Brahmagyani, not only that, he is established in Brahmagyana, and also is absolutely free from any trace of desire and apapa with no sign of sin also in anything. So the disciple must have all these qualities. Then apart from that, he also possesses tremendous vairagya. The guru, the teacher should be a Sadguru who imparts instructions on the Sadvastu to a disciple. So he completely leads him to the ultimate knowledge. Anta ko le jata hai. So hence that's why this Vivekachudamani is written in the form of a dialogue between a teacher and a pupil. He asks a number of questions, and then with great humility, and then because the teacher was greatly impressed, pleased by his attitude of service and other qualities, so he is decided to save him from being drowned in samsara, and he has decided to confer him his greatest knowledge, and he starts giving the instructions. So the begin with the Guru clearly says, you are really the Paramatman, aap to wahi hai. What is the your idea of involvement in samsara, bondage, etc. is because your understanding, aapki jnaan dhake hue, Badal says, it's completely covered by the cloud. Otherwise, there is no reason. There is nothing. That's why in traditional Advaita also again gain. Unlike some other ideas of realization, in traditional Advaita, there is nothing like you get something. Kuch pana, milna, kahan jana, ana, kuch bhi nahi. They say that आप अज्ञान अंधेरा से ढके हुए थे. Now when that is removed, what is there original जो स्वयं प्रकाश है वो ऐसे ही प्रकाश है. So that's why they always give the famous example. मान ली एक आरसी और आईना, उसके पूरा गंदगी लगे हुए है. If you clean it, do you add anything? नया कुछ है. What was the impurity that was removed, and then the mirror shines beautifully. In the same way, whatever has covered you through ajnana, the malina, if that is removed, you will shine in your own original that beauty and glory. There's nothing to be added, nothing to be learned, or nothing to be done afresh. That is very, very clear in Advaita. That's why they don't accept the other ideas of samadhi, experiencing something, darshan, Bhagwan love. All those things are totally negated in classical Advaita Vedanta, although Thakur completely has combined all that and given a different outlook of Advaita itself. But in this, it's very clear they are saying that you are all that. So the bondage to the Anatman itself is samsara. This bondage, this linkage to the Anatman, that is the reason for the samsara, and the discrimination between the Atman and Atman will completely burn out the effect of Ajnana. How does the effect of Ajnana go? It goes by the removal of the distinction between the other. So then the Shishya is asking 7 questions. So the whole discussions are going largely on those 7 questions, and also further as to several other inputs the Guru gives. The first he asks is, Ko nama bandha? What is his bondage? What is his bondage? Katam yesha agataha? How did it happen? It's a very, very important question. Actually, you see this, nobody can answer it. Even Advaita really struggles to answer this question. Katam yesha, how does it happen? See, if you are that always that Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava, if you are that eternal, shining, Anadi, Ananta, Sachit Ananda Swarup Atman, how are you in this samsara then? How does it happen? It should not happen. If you are that eternally pure thing, how do you feel? So they struggle. Then they say they bring the concept of ajnana or ignorance. आप अज्ञान अंधेरा पे आप डूबे हुए ऐसा अज्ञान कहाँ है बताइए? Where is it ajnana? No answer. Is the ajnana in Brahman? Then Brahman is itself ajnana, it is not pure. और आप अज्ञान ब्रह्मन की बाहर गए तो आप द्वैत स्वीकार कर लो. If you say ajnana is outside Brahman, then you are accepting 2 entities as Brahman and ajnana. If ajnana is part of Brahman, Brahman is not the Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava. It is ajnana, inherent ajnana in Brahman. So then they say that no, this Maya is Sat, Asat, Anirvachaniya Maya. इसके आप कुछ बोल नहीं पा रहे हैं. For that they said it is Sat, it is Asat. किसके बारे में बोलना संभव नहीं है, अनिर्वचनीय, it cannot be described, and that is Maya. So nobody could. Every philosophy has some limitation, obviously, because philosophy is not realization. Philosophy is coming down and explaining it. When you come down and explain, you come to the level of the senses. आप इंद्रिय जगत से अतीन्द्रिय जगत के पूरी तरह कैसे व्याख्या करें? How can you talk about something which is beyond senses, staying in the zone of senses? That is why there is always a short. That's why they say that you don't worry, you do sadhana. So Swamiji gives a very beautiful example. He explains it beautifully. He says, supposing you are having 105 degrees fever, you are in delirium. Ulat palat bolte ja rahe hain. At that time, there is no question how I got this fever. You have to immediately cure that. आपको दवा लेना है, एंटीबायोटिक्स लेना है, कुछ लेना है पहले. And when it is over, there is no question of where it is. It is gone already. So he says, the fact is that you are caught. There is no denying that. You may ask how it happened or how it did not, but it is very fact. All of us know that we are completely caught by that. So the answer should be how do we do, what to do to get rid of it. And once it is true, then the whole question becomes totally different for such people. They will no longer look for any answer because they have already found that which is to be found, that which is ultimate. So then he asks, Katam Pratishtasya, how does it continue to exist? Kaise wo rehta hai continuously? And then, Katam Vimoksha, how one can get rid of this, how to get this moksha. Then, ko asav anatma, what is this anatma? Paramatma atma, what is this paramatma? And then, tayor viveka katam etat uchyatam. Please tell me, pray, vouchsafe, what is the distinction between atma and anatma? These are the 7 questions the Sishya asked, the Guru. So, then the Guru first, he knows what is most important. Obviously, he takes the 4th questions, Katham Vimoksha. How can one get rid of this? That is the first thing. Then slowly he will explain the other things also one by one as to how they have brought it up. But immediately he begins with the explanation. How can this be got rid of? How liberation can be achieved? So, that's why, it seems Chansika Bhakti used to say, supposing a man is caught in a house on fire, his first instinct will be to quench the flames and escape death. He will not linger to ask the question how the fire was caused and what is its extent, etc. So in the Upanishads also they use the term Deepta Shira. When the head is on fire, you simply try to find the water to quench it. Rather, you will not ask how this happened. So those who ask so many those questions means they are not really interested in the highest knowledge. They are really interested in some intellectual chachadi. उसके लिए कुछ इधर उधर बात करना, शेयर करना अच्छा लगता है. But real thing is to do. And then he says the Guru tells the Shishya to obtain liberation one should develop vairagya and acquire the qualities of samadhama, uparati, titiksha, etc. And then, of course, he is very clear in Vivekachudamani, because that's also we will have to discuss in detail. He clearly says, give up everything and take up complete sannyasa. Give up all karmas. Receive upadesha and shruti text from the Guru. Contemplate about that. Discriminate between whatever is anatman and atman by unceasing meditation on the import of scriptural text. Attain the state of that kind of a Viveka Samadhi and then realize a non-difference with the Atman and Anatman, and that is why finally you can get. So here the Guru is very clear. He says, in his idea of sannyasa is, sarva karma tyaga. He very clearly says, not only kamya and nitya nimittika. Kamya is what there are people with so much desires people do. Then naimittika on some very special occasions. This is even nitya karma also is to be completely given. Because here's one logic, of course Swamiji and Thakur have some other logic also, that also we will see in the next class. So he says here, that is because jnana is not karma janya. Jnana, knowledge, karma se udbhav nahi hua. It did not originate. Karma did not give birth to jnana. See, essentially because what is the inherent difficulty in karma? Karma itself means Dvaita. Unless there is a second person, unless there is something second, even if you do alone, even if you sit, so there is always be the idea, karma immediately implies duality. Even if you do anything, even sitting and thinking mentally, you are there, your mind is there. Your mind is looking at something else. So, but the pure jnana talks about that Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swabhava Chaitanya, complete idea of Chaitanya without any duality. So there is some logic in saying because karma is not the jnana is not the result of the karma. It is not born out of karma. So that is why he says unless karma is completely eliminated, it's not possible to get jnana. That is the Vivekachudamani view. Because he says it is Vastu Tantra. By itself, inherent there is a quality. And it is not Purusha Tantra, that which is got by human intellect. Purusha Tantra is इसके लिए आपको कुछ मेहनत करना है, इधर उधर कुछ करना पड़ रहा है, उसकी वजह से आपका मिलेगा. But Vastu Tantra, inherently by itself, it is value, worth. So it is not something external. It is it's not got from something else. So normally, no, not only that, there is a very classical explanation. What is the nature of action? Action means there are four kinds of things in action. What is that? Janya, Apya, Vikarya, or Sanskarya. What are these four things? Janya means that which is born. So obviously, Jnana is not something which is born. It is there eternally. So Apya means that which is to be attained or reached. And then Vikarya means modification or change or anything. And then Sanskarya means purification. So obviously, none of these things apply to the Atman. Atman is ever existence. सर्वकाल के लिए सत्य है, इसलिए जन्य नहीं हो सकता. It cannot be something which is born, so it is not janya. And then Atman is always is ever there. आपकी कहाँ है पहुँचना, to attain, to reach, to get, all those things will not happen because Atman is ever there, always there, हमेशा के लिए, सर्वकाल के लिए. So Apya also will not apply to that. And then it is changeless. So one of the greatest qualities of Brahman, it is the one same, undivided, changeless, birthless, deathless, eternal Chaitanya. So obviously Vikarya cannot be there. There cannot be any Vikara to Brahman. If it is there, then it loses its qualities as Brahman. And then Sanskarya is not said there because it is ever pure, and then there cannot be any sanskar to Brahman. Brahman is always pure, eternally pure. So due to Ajnana, the individual does not know he is Brahman. He has forgotten his real nature, or his real nature is covered by Ajnana. So the truth has to be revealed to him by the light of knowledge, and he has to realize it by himself. आप जितने भी आपके जो भी उपदेश मिल सकता है, जो भी बता सकते हैं, लेकिन आपका स्वयं साधन के माध्यम में खुद ही पता करेंगे. No one can really get it for you. They can show the way, they can give you hints, they can help you, but you have to do completely and get it. So the entanglement in karma, अब कर्म करते 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 आप तो इस सब के अंदर आ जाएंगे. The qualities which are directly opposite to Brahman are all in karma. The moment you do karma, obviously you are moving away from the knowledge or the efforts of gaining knowledge, because all these are all against the very nature of Brahman. Therefore, the Guru says that आपकी सर्व कर्म त्याग, completely you have to abandon all karmas, and you have to make the mind by acquiring the disciplines such as Samadhama Upadyakta, and you have to meditate deeply on that knowledge as proclaimed as Suti and imparted by the Guru. Of course, even Shankaracharya does also clearly say that it does not mean that you should completely give up the prescribed karmas, etc., even from the beginning. Beginning में पहले आपका जो श्रुति में जो कहा गया, what the scriptures say, what is enjoined upon you, all that you have to do it initially, but then slowly, thereby, finally, we have to get rid of all that. The Upadesha Panchaka, this scripture, it says the person seeking liberation must start with daily training in Vedas, engage in undivided devotion by the grace of God, etc. Withdraw his mind from sense pleasures, kamya karmas, etc. Because no sense pleasures and desire-oriented actions is completely withdraw himself. See the meaningless futility of all that. Then he should develop Atmecha, the desire to know the Atman, the deep longing to know Atman. लोग ऐसे इधर उधर कभी सुना ऐसा नहीं है. इसलिए आप एकमात्र उद्देश्य, एकमात्र पानी का चीज जीवन में, the only thing to be attained in life, that kind of intent, if you do that, and then this is called that Vividisha, the desire to know. And then is when it gets deep rooted in mind, he has to adopt then the means of sannyasa, give up everything, and then engage only in Vedanta Vichara. Then it is possible to get the highest knowledge according to Shankaracharya. It's something very important. He said, of course, how Thakurman Swamiji have also shown us a slightly different route where they kind of differed from this and why, what was the need, we'll take it up next time. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna. Anyway, at least